Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back, guys. I'm back with Claudine, and we are back with an old episode, but we have updates. We have more information. A lot has changed in the last couple of years, and Claudine's going to tell us more.
Yeah, so this is our episode 2 in our little series, our monthly series about Notre Dame, because we're so excited. In December, specifically December 8th of this year, it is going to reopen. So I thought, what could be better than a little thing every month about it? And so this one is one that we did in January of 2022. 2 years ago. But this one is about the statues that they miraculously took off the roof of Notre Dame just 4 days before the fire. So it was 16 statues, and they've all been restored, and they've been in the Architecture Museum at the Trocadero now for years. I mean, they were done pretty quick, like within 2 years. And you go see those, but the exhibit is fantastic, and I wanted to share a little bit more about it because it keeps changing.
Yeah, and I'm so sad I didn't see them when they were in that museum, but I mean, now I can see them in their new home.
Yeah, they're still there. Well, they're still there at the museum, at the Trocadero.
Well, then I still have time since I'm there every freaking day. I should go.
I know you're there every day, so you could go in any day but Tuesday. So so inside the Architecture Museum that is just there at the Trocadero, if you're standing in the Trocadero, Crystal's office, you look to the left, it is a building on the left that's the Architecture Museum. And go in there. It's fantastic. Like I said, it's closed on Tuesdays, but they have a revolving exhibit about Notre Dame. And it was originally supposed to be closing in April. Then it was June. And now you're very lucky because it closes September 2nd. And so I think that keeps changing because of where they are in the construction. Because in the exhibit that you will hear in this episode are the statues that were saved. But this is the only opportunity you will ever have to get as close as you can to them now, because when they go back up on the roof and that is finished, you'll have to see them from afar.
Yeah, and you just went. I mean, how was it to get up close and personal with them?
I mean, I've seen them, I think, like 6 or 7 times. But I wanted to go again before we recorded this, because what is really fantastic about this exhibit is that it just kind of keeps evolving and changing as the project of the restoration changes. So when you walk in it, they've moved some things around. Right when you walk in, on the right-hand side is the original rooster that fell the night the spire crashed on April 15th, 2019. And he's right there. I love to see him. But if you go through, and because it's an architecture museum, they do have casts and moldings from the church on the walls. But then it also has like little wooden models of the spire and what the roof looks like. And all these things were there before the fire happened. But the way they put it together, they also have amazing drawings that Viollet-le-Duc and Le Sceau did. of the spire. And what's really cool is just on Friday morning, I go over to Notre Dame because the spire, they are just every week taking more and more of the scaffolding off because it's getting covered with lead. And now it almost makes me cry every time because it's coming back to life. But what's really cool is you could see that in person now. And then you could go to the Architecture Museum and look at the actual drawing that Viollet-le-Duc did in the 19th century and be like, oh my God, this is all they have left to do. So it's really a fascinating thing to see. They also have drawings from like inside what the chapels were. They have drawings of the sculptures that Geoffrey Duchamp did. He did all of the statues of the kings, as well as the original drawings of the statues that you see in the museum. And then, as you'll hear on the podcast, we talk about, originally they were patinaed green. Now they're kind of back to their original, like very, very dark chocolate brown. And we laugh and say we liked them dirty and green better. But it's really fantastic to see. And what I really love too is they have a bunch of videos. They have a video, of course, with the love of my life, Philippe Villeneuve, the architect of Notre Dame. He just doesn't know he's the love of my life yet. And there's a video of him talking about it and how it's so important to him to bring back what Viollet-le-Duc did. And what's really cool is that there's something there where Viollet-le-Duc is also saying that for him and Lesueur and Duchamp, they felt that their intention was to rediscover the medieval Notre Dame and bring that to life. And so what's so amazing is that now Philippe is doing that, which is what Viollet did as well. So generations from now, they're going to talk about Philippe Villeneuve like I talk about Viollet-le-Duc. And it's so amazing to see these videos. They also have other videos of the restoration process as far as like the young people, and it's so many young people in their 20s that are restoring the paintings and the stained glass, and that are iron workers and bronze workers. And it's really amazing to see. And like the whole time I would sit there and watch these videos with just a big smile on my face, because the project itself is something that just transcends everything else. And it's going to be something that people talk about for generations, especially those people that got to be involved with it before it reopens here in just a few short months.
Yeah, and I love that it's like so many young people, like you said, that are restoring and working on these things, and it's all like full circle, and it's just really beautiful to watch.
It is. It's so neat. And what's really cool too is they have like pieces of some of the charred wood that was, that went back to the 9th century that was in the roof. And so when you think of, the 9th century, they were full grown trees. So how old those trees were. And they have the charred pieces, which is always kind of sad to see, but they also have the pieces of stone that were in the transept that have fallen. And what's amazing about these is, what they did is they tested all these things. And if the stone was okay structurally, they used them and put it back. But obviously these pieces weren't, because that part of the church is done now. But what's really cool is if you go into the Louvre, into the basement of the Louvre, in the medieval Louvre, you see these markings on the stones. And if you go into the Architecture Museum and you look on there, there's also markings on these stones, because that is how the stonecutter got paid. And when you look at these stones and realize they're from the 13th century, it's pretty amazing. And there's huge like holes, like almost like dowel looking holes into the rock. And they did that because they did all sorts of scientific testing on it, because they wanted to find the closest stone to that exact stone to use to rebuild the church. And so it's really cool. I mean, I was in there, but me, I'm just a complete nerd when it comes to that stuff, and I'm soaking up every part of it. So I spent a good 2 hours in there. I'm sure most people would do it in half that amount of time. But it's also cool because they have a stained glass. It's from the sacristy of Saint-Geneviève, and they have a painting that's been restored. They used to have pieces of the organ there, but that's gone now because all of that has been put back into the church.
It's so cool. Well, I can't wait to check it out. And we're going to be continuing to talk about Notre Dame in the coming episodes.
Yeah, so check this out. And then next month, we'll have another one about Notre Dame. I can't wait.
Well, tune in, guys, and make sure you head over to ClaudineHemingway.com and make sure you listen to the rest of this episode. It is a revisit, but it's about a couple years old now, and it's still very relevant considering what's changed and what's happened. So enjoy the show, guys.
So welcome back to Paris History, Avec, Hemingway. Today we are talking about the statues of Notre Dame. And I don't know if you've ever visited Notre Dame or you've seen pictures, but there are a ton of statues on the outside, on the inside, and I'm sure all of them have a story. So Claudine's going to give us a little look at some of that history today, and I'm very excited to learn about it.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, as if you've listened to our 100 some odd episodes, I have lots of favorite things. I say this is my favorite about 1,000 times, but Notre Dame is very beloved, and I am so happy that I have literally spent hundreds of hours in there before the horrible fire of April 2019, documenting everything, even though it makes me sad I can't go in today, but I'm so glad I had that time. But this is specifically about the statues that were on the roof of Notre Dame that you can now see today in Paris, and you could see them closer than you would have ever been able to see them before.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so you could see them all on display. And so where they are in Paris is someplace that you know very well. It is right at the Trocadero, and it's just opposite of the Eiffel Tower. And on either side, where you stand many times every single morning, Crystal, taking photos, on either side of you are two museums. And the museum that's on your left, as you look towards the Eiffel Tower, is the Architecture and Patrimoine library and museum. And so inside there, it has some of the most amazing things in there, and most people never even go inside or even know it's there.
Those museums are so sad. I always think about them because they're like huge buildings, and I feel like no one goes inside them.
Nobody goes inside. I mean, I think the first few times I even went to the Trocadero, I didn't even know that was back there.
Yeah, I think most people don't. It's sad.
Yeah. So what it is another one of my very favorite people in French history, Alexander Lenoir. He was a gentleman in the Revolution that instantly saw that all of these things are being destroyed by the revolutionists, and he jumped in and thought, we need to save these things, the monuments, and especially the tombs that were at the Basilique Saint-Denis, which is where the kings and queens were buried. And these people went in there and basically ripped open the tombs, because a lot of the kings and queens were buried with jewels and all sorts of other pricely antiquities. And so they basically ripped through these things, and they were nice enough to make two pits. One was for the Valois, and one was for the Bourbon kings. And so at least they, threw them into the respected hole.
Great.
And then they put like lime and stuff on top of it. And so basically everything disintegrated and went away. So none of those tombs, what you see today, thankfully to Alexander Lenoir, because he's the one who went up there and had all these things saved. He moved them all to what we see today is the École des Beaux-Arts, that's just down there on Rue Bonaparte on the left bank, just right by the Seine. And it was from 1795 to 1850. It was the Monuments of France Museum. And then our friend Viollet-le-Duc, who comes into play with Notre Dame, he decided in 1879 he wanted to bring back this idea of having this amazing museum dedicated to all of these things. So that is how this museum began. In 1882, it was full of sculptures and all sorts of other things, and was placed at the Trocadero after the exhibition that had been there. And so that was one of the few buildings that still remained from the 1937 exhibition that was there. So everything was moved in there. And in 1937, it was decided that it would actually hold more than 350 casts of different monuments and churches around France. So if you are a lover of architecture, the churches of France, even if you're not religious, are a sight to behold and to go in and see. And the facades of these churches tell the story of all sorts of stories from the Bible and the different saints. And so here, you could basically get a tour of all around France, seeing some of the most amazing cathedrals and monuments all in one place in that museum that nobody goes to.
Well, we got to go there. We got to go.
It's really cool. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorites. So Inside of it right now, though, is the statues from Notre Dame. So on April 11th, 4 days before the fire, the sky over Notre Dame was basically dotted with these flying statues that were being taken off of the roof and were flying down to the ground to be put into a truck to be restored. And so how it all happened was that, Viollet-le-Duc was brought in to redo Notre Dame, and he had just done the Sainte-Chapelle. And so he was brought in over there to redo Notre Dame that was in just horrible, horrible state, like just falling apart. And he had all this stuff. He had his original plans was that there was going to be 2 spires on Notre Dame. The spire, there used to be a spire that was put up there, and it was taken down in 1797. So during the Revolution, because the wind damaged it too many times, and it was in jeopardy of falling, and somebody would obviously get very hurt. So from 1797 to 1861, there was no spire on Notre Dame. So a whole generation knew of it with no spire, like we sadly know today. And so Viollet-le-Duc had these plans. He was going to do these 2 spires up there. Ended up being obviously just one. And then he had, leading up to it on either side, he had 16 statues created that were the apostles, and then the 4 symbols of the evangelists.
Oh, wow.
So they were these really, everybody remembers seeing them. They were all completely patinaed, copper from years and years of being up there. And they lined, basically, there was 4 lines going up to the spire. Well, at the time, they took them off, and they had all of that scaffolding up there. And so the statues themselves, when, you see something that's like that and it's copper, you think, oh, that's super heavy. But it was actually pretty ingenious how they did it. It was basically just a copper shell, and the inside was done with this iron structure. And then the sheets of copper were basically covered the statues. So they were very lightweight. When they took them off of the roof, they pulled their heads off first.
Oh my God.
Inside, from these huge cranes, they would attach these ropes inside their statues' bodies, and they'd go flying off of the roof. So people, you could see videos of these things just flying from cranes over Notre Dame. But it was an insanely amazing stroke of luck, because if they had waited and not taken those down, when the fire burned through the roof and the roof collapsed, those would have, I'm sure, all melted and been completely destroyed.
Oh my gosh, that's good luck.
It was very good luck, but you know why? I think because our girl, Saint Geneviève, on the rooster that was on the very top of the spire, inside of it were the 3 relics. There was the relic of Saint Geneviève, Saint Denis, and then a piece of the crown of thorns. And we know from our 2 episodes about Saint Geneviève of how she saved Paris numerous times, even for decades after she had died. I think it was Saint Geneviève.
I think you're right. I mean, it makes sense.
She saved it. So at the very top of the spire, of course, was the rooster. And the rooster itself was created in 1858, as was all of the statues of the apostles. Adolphe Victor Geoffroy Duchamp was working with Viollet-le-Duc, and he was the one who basically designed all of the statues himself and the rooster. The rooster was placed on top of the spire on June 22nd, 1859, and it weighed 66 pounds. It had a ball underneath the rooster itself, and inside the ball was where the relics were placed. Later on in 1935, they ended up redoing the rooster, and the relics were placed inside the rooster at that point. That sadly did not come off of the roof before the fire. And as the fire was burning and I was watching the spire, topple over and crash into the transept, all I could think about is this rooster, because I've always been obsessed with this rooster because of the story of what it holds. And most people, every time I would share that story on Instagram or whatever, I was like, this is a really cool story, and nobody seemed to really care. But now everybody knows about the rooster.
It's not a secret.
But you could also see the rooster here at the museum, and you could get up close. You see it where it's all dented up. And I have pictures of all of this. Plus, I also did a video that will also link. So you could see every single one of these statues. You could see a picture of every single one of the statues we're going to talk about. But even if you could get close enough to it that you could see where there's the gold gilding a little bit on the rooster itself. And it's really amazing. The day after it came crashing down, Philippe Villeneuve, who I'm in love with, who is the chief architect that was working on Notre Dame before the fire, and now it's his job to keep everything going. And I just absolutely love him because of what he's doing. But he found the rooster in a pile of all of the timbers that had been burned. So the rooster and Saint-Geneviève rose again.
I love it. Rose again. So dramatic.
It is. I know. It's just, I found a children's book, like a graphic novel, and it's about the rooster of Notre Dame. And I found it at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, and I had to buy it. And I will share pictures of it because I was so excited. It's like one of those great big graphic novels, kids books. So I was excited. And it shows like a little drawing of Philippe holding the rooster.
Ah, that's so cute.
I know, it's so cute. So the statues themselves that are up there on the roof were also done by Adolphe. And he basically based all of these in 1848. They were based on his drawings. They were created by two different gilding companies that actually put it together. They were built by Auguste Bellu, and they're covered with 2 millimeter sheets of copper that were then hammered in by the Durand Plumbing Company. It's kind of funny that's a plumbing company, but I guess they know copper. But he had also created all the apostles and are on the spire of Sainte-Chapelle. They are different. They don't line the roof like we knew of Notre Dame. They're kind of circle around the spire itself. So they were all created and installed on March 23rd, 1861. And then they, of course, lasted up there until 2019. When they were taken down, on that April 11th, they were taken down to Paris-Joux, which is down in southwest France. They went to the SOCRA, which is a company that basically restores a lot of the ironworks. They also had worked on the Saint-Martin, the beautiful store that's reopened, all of those Art Deco railings. They had recently restored all of that. So when they got the guys down there, when they got all the apostles down there, they did a micro sand blasting of apricot powder. And to remove the whole outer layer of the patina, they added a whole new layer of patina on it. They painted them. They used a blowtorch on it. And so now when you see them, like we're so used to seeing them in that very specific patinaed copper green, now they're basically like dark espresso brown.
Oh.
Which I kind of liked them better at green.
Yeah, I think the green's better too.
Yeah, and they really stood out against the roof. So now it's like, I don't know if they're going to eventually, like they covered them with, they painted them, they did all of this. They're super smooth now. But I don't know if they're going to eventually someday, once they're out in the elements, get back to that green copper. I kind of hope they do, because I kind of thought they looked a little better.
Let's go back to ugly, like the worn out copper look.
Yeah, but it took 1 month to restore each one. And I have pictures on my website of what these statues look like when they were opened up. And then a lot of them had to have like basically 90% of their inside structure replaced, because where there was between the sheetings of copper that they laid on it, because they'll put these sheets of like 16 by 16 inches copper, or sometimes even larger. But over time, sometimes those edges come up a little bit, and so water gets in, and so some of the inner structures of these statues were almost completely like they were just standing up by sheer will of the copper, because the inside of it, like the iron and the wood, basically kind of were falling apart. So they were each replaced, and the original plan was that they were taking these off the roof and they would start to work on them, and 2 by 2 they'd be returned to Notre Dame and placed inside of the cathedral so people could see them. Obviously that changed. And so now you could see all of them, in every single one of them, in the architecture museum. And so it's what's amazing, like I said at the beginning, is you could actually stand right next to these. You would never be able to get as close as you can now when they were on the roof.
I love that. So you're saying we need to go to the museum.
You need to go to the museum. So on June 29th of this last year, 2021, all of them were there. So they've all arrived. And of course, all of them will go through who they are. And this is all like in order. So when you go there, this is one of those episodes that you could take with you and turn it on when you get to the museum and listen to it. And then just basically it's a little stroll through there. You do get to see, as well as all the statues, they have a really, really cool walkthrough of the drawings that Viollet-le-Duc and Adolphe did of the spire, of the rooster, of some of the statues. They were changing the location of some of the statues, even the day they were putting them up there. There is a really cool model of Notre Dame that was right when they were starting. So you see basically what it looked like during the Revolution. And you could get basically like, it is this huge model, and you could get down on like your knees and like look into the side of Notre Dame. So it's like almost like a little Notre Dame dollhouse.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's really, really cool. And nobody was there, of course, when I was there, except for a family with a child that had a 2-year-old toddler that they just basically let go and bang on every single thing that this kid saw. And I was about ready to lose my mind, but but it's so cool to get to be able to see these things. They have videos talking in French to all the different people working to restore it. You have wood models of what the spire looked like. It's really, really cool. You get to see, of course, the rooster that's in a case, and then you get to see them talking about how they're going to restore it. So if you love Notre Dame at all, this is where you need to go. And again, you get to see this opportunity to see something you never would get a chance to see up close. But of course, there are, when they were created, there was 4 different body types. So, but you really don't notice that because of the 16 statues. They all look different because they had 4 body types, but then their heads and their hands and their arms would change. So if you're Catholic and you know about the saints, then a lot of this stuff you'll have figured out. But each of the saints have different attributes. Like our gal Saint Genevieve, we said a lot of the times we see her standing with a lamb. In the older statues, she's holding a candle. So once you kind of start to realize these little attributes, you kind of, when you see these saints, you're like, oh, that's obviously Saint Peter.
Yeah.
So St. Peter is the first one that you see, and St. Peter, or Saint Pierre, he's always holding keys. And so he's always holding those 2 keys in his right hand. These are the keys to the gates of heaven, and he's known as the Prince of the Apostle. And so he's the first guy you see. He's always, I think, the easiest one to figure out because of those little keys. You'll see him in most of the major churches in Paris, Saint-Sulpice, Saint-Germain, Desprez, you see him all over the place. There's also St. Matthew, who you'll see next. He was a tax collector and a customs officer. He was the first one to have followed Jesus, and he is standing there with an open book. And one of my favorite things about the saints is to figure out who they're the patron saint of. And he is the patron saint of accountants, Italy, and perfume makers.
Wait, accountants, Italy, and perfume makers?
Some of these people have like a list of like 50 things. Like Saint Pierre, literally, if you look it up on Wikipedia, there is a whole separate link it'll take you to, and it's like 4 pages of people he's the patron saint of.
But that still doesn't even have anything in common.
No, it's really like, I mean, some of them, like one of the ladies, who was it? It says Saint Clotilde that we taught when we did the statues of the Luxembourg. And she was, I think it was Saint Clotilde that was the patron saint of women with disagreeable husbands. I just love to always be like, okay, who's this person? Who are they the patron saint of? Because some of them are so funny. There's Saint Andre. or Saint Andrew. He was a brother of Saint Pierre. He was a fisherman on the banks of the river, where he was kind of one of the first disciples. He was, you'll notice him because he's holding a cross, but it's the cross in the shape of an X. And if you're Scottish or you've been to Scotland, you kind of maybe say, oh yeah, I know who St. Andrew is. Because when he was martyred and he was sentenced to death, he was supposed to be crucified on a cross, but he didn't want to have the same shape of a cross that Jesus had. He wanted a different shape. And so it was the shape of an X. And he supposedly magically just attached himself to it. They didn't have to nail him or tie him or anything, but it is the cross of St. Andrew. So when you see the Scottish flag, that's why. And they call it the St. Andrew cross.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. But he's always a very easy one, but he's a patron saint of fishermen and pregnant women. And people with sore throats.
Wait, sore throats too?
Yeah. Again, I just picked out my favorite ones of them. There's a lot of other things they are. And I even look like, who's the patron saint of writers? Who do we need to know? And there's like 12.
So are we supposed to like pray to these people for what we want?
Well, some people, like I have a, oh my gosh, what is it? The St. Anthony, and St. Anthony is the patron saint of travelers. And I have a bracelet with a St. Anthony medal on it. And I'm not Catholic, but ever since I was like in high school, when it kind of was a thing, but I always have that one. I also have my grandpa's St. Anthony medal from when he was in World War II that he had with him when he was a co-pilot on B-24s. I also have my grandma's St. Anthony medal. And my mom says she has one that she's going to give me. And I keep them with me all the time when I travel.
This is great. I like it.
So, yeah, it's just, who knows? I really wish I could find a Saint Geneviève medal. So
it's more sentimental for you.
Yeah. So it's more like this person speaks to you. But there was one I was recently watching, Stephen Colbert, and I can't remember who the actor was, but there's a saint that's basically the patron saint of actors and prostitutes. And the whole time they were like thinking that was really funny. But then I was like, no, because the reason is that we've talked about these before, like dancers and actors were basically thought of as a rung above a prostitute.
Wow.
Like that's why they, the little dancers of the ballet and the people in the opera and the actors, they were just like this low form of life is what people thought, because they basically were selling themselves.
Yeah, that's really sad.
Yeah, so that's why that saint is in charge, is a patron saint of actors and prostitutes, because at one point they were basically the same thing.
Well, that's interesting.
I know.
Prostitutes.
Stephen Colbert did not have me on the episode to tell them about this. But there's also Saint Jude. He has the same body as Saint Thomas. And he is different because he's not holding any attributes at all. Some of them don't have something. Saint Simon, he's holding a book. He is sometimes depicted holding a very, like, basically a 4-foot high saw, because that's how he died. He was sawed in half. And he's the patron saint of tanners.
Tanners.
Kind of gross. Tanners as far as like what they would do. Not like we're going to go lay in the sun. They were like basically like how they would do that and turn things into leather, to make purses. But Saint Bartholomew, he was the very first one that they took down to be restored. He's holding a very large knife. He has a very curly hair, and the large knife was because he was skinned alive and beheaded.
Oh, yikes.
But this is a very, very good episode to listen to while you're eating breakfast.
This is like a Halloween episode.
Maybe we should have, but he's also the patron saint of butchers, makes sense, leather workers, and cheese and salt merchants.
Ah, that's cool. I like the cheese and salt merchants.
I know. I was like, oh, I'm into him. There's Saint Jacques the Less, Saint James the Less. He is holding a club that was used to kill him. I don't know if I want to be like, immortalized in history with the thing that killed him.
No, thank you.
Yeah, Saint Paul, he was one of the ones that was persecuted He was persecuting the Christians, and then he had a divine revelation, and then he later was persecuting others. But he rests on a sword, of course, as you could guess. He's the patron saint of missionaries and evangelists.
Makes sense. There's some commonality there.
Yeah, some of these make sense. There's Saint Jack the Major, Saint Jacques. He was a very important in most of the major events of Christ's life, and he was one of his closest disciples. He preached in Spain, and he was the first to be executed in 44 A.D. His name is given, of course, to Compostela and scallops. So if you're in France and you have the, scallops are called coquille Saint-Jacques, and that's only when they're served in the shell. But normally scallops are just Saint-Jacques, and these are named after him.
Oh, well, now I know where that comes from, because I always wondered why mussels were called Saint-Jacques. I was like, that's so weird.
But randomly, he's a patron saint of oyster fishermen, not scallop fishermen.
What? This doesn't make any sense. Were these guys drunk when they were deciding these things?
But he's also the patron saint of pharmacists, veterinarians, Spain, and Seattle.
Seattle?
Yeah.
Oh man, this just keeps getting better and better.
I know it's kind of a fun little game just to see who they are. Saint Jean, he is the only one that does not have a beard. He is always usually pretty easy to, you could see these guys also on the statues that are in the facade in front of the doors of Notre Dame and a lot of other ones. He had been told he had to drink from this chalice that was filled with poison. He did, but he survived. So he's holding a chalice in his hand. He is the patron saint of love, loyalty, friendship, authors, art dealers, and poison victims, of course.
Of course, poison victims. That makes sense.
But if you drink poison, don't you die? I mean, at that point, do you need a saint?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I mean, maybe it's not. I mean, poison, I think, if it's not, doesn't kill you, isn't it just kind of, I don't know, what you're drinking?
Yeah, no.
There's Saint Philippe. He is also holding a cross, a small cross compared to what St. Andrew is holding. That is, of course, his instrument of his martyrdom. He is the patron saint of our friend Molly, because he is a patron saint of pastry chefs and also people that make hats. Very random. So then, after you see these guys, you then get to see the four evangelists. And when you looked at the roof and the spire, and you saw the way that these were lining up, they would be lining up, looking down, except for one, which we'll get to. They all look down towards the street. And at the bottom of each one of them were the four evangelists. And the four evangelists are in their depiction they're depicted as a animal or as an angel. And so those all make sense. And once you kind of know these, you will see these in other churches. And a lot of times, sometimes you see the saint themselves with an eagle by their feet, or something like that. So they all kind of, it's all another one of those little things that once you kind of start seeing these, it's kind of like when you buy a red car and all of a sudden everybody has a red car, you see, now you'll start to notice these things. So the four evangelists were also the four authors of the life of Christ. And they're each represented holding a book. All four of them have the same body type. They're very different. And they're all holding a book, but each book is also a little bit different. And then there's four of them. So there's the eagle of Saint Jean. So these guys get their little symbol, plus they're also there as a statue. So they get double dipping on here. There's the eagle of Saint Jean. There's the angel of St. Matthew. There's the lion of St. Mark. And there's the ox of St. Luke. So when you look at them, and each one of them has their head turned, and they all have wings, and they're looking up the spire towards the statues of the apostles. And they're really, really interesting to get to see those up close. And then the very last statue you're going to see is of St. Thomas. St. Thomas is the patron saint of architects. And when Adolf was designing these, he made St. Thomas have the face of Viollet-le-Duc, who was the architect of the restoration.
Full circle.
So it's full circle, and it's really cool how they did it. And it's so cool to get to see it up close, because you would never get to see this detail from far away, even if you had the best telescope in the world. He has his head turned, and when he was placed there, he is the only one that has his head turned. He's looking up with his hand up, and he's looking up basically at his spire. So Viollet-le-Duc he was able to stand there for over 100 years and look up at his spire that he designed.
100 years. I like that.
So thank God he didn't have to see it burn that day and fall. But the saint himself, St. Thomas, is holding a ruler, and he is, that's an instrument of architects. And if you look at it closely, it says his name on it. So it'll say Viollet-le-Duc, that you would never get to see that up close ever, other than this instant. So it's really, really cool. And you get to walk through these and get to see all of them together. And then, at the little end, you get to see Viollet-le-Duc. He also was on the facade of Notre Dame. We did a live walk around there, probably like a year ago, that I will also put the link up so you could kind of see the outside. But across the very front, over the doors, was the different kings of Judah. And during the revolution, they pulled those down because the revolutionists thought they were the actual monarchy kings of France. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to destroy them. But when Viollet-le-Duc had them redone from the original sketches, 2 of them were changed. There's one of them has the face of Viollet-le-Duc. The other one has the architect Lassault, who was also started the project with Viollet-le-Duc, but died before it was completed. And so his faces also can be seen there.
I'm going to go to this museum and listen to our podcast and learn all this. You're like an audio guide.
It's an audio guide, but it's really cool. You also get to see, like, you as I said, you get to see all these different casts from different churches around France. You get to also see some of the pieces that were the original pieces of Notre Dame from the medieval version of Notre Dame that were taken down and redone by Viollet-le-Duc. They were just too damaged, but now they're hanging here in the museum, so you get to see those. They also have pretty large casts of the Arc de Triomphe, but the museum has many different levels, and you also even have it also even goes into contemporary architecture. There's also part of it where you walk in and it's all of this stained glass from these different churches, and you just basically the whole room is just dark except for the light shining through the back of the stained glass. It's really stunning, but you also get some amazing views of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, I used to go in there to keep warm between photo shoots because no one goes in that cafe.
Yeah, that's where that very fancy restaurant Giraffe is.
Yeah, me and Giuseppe went there. It was good, but I don't know if it was worth all the hard to get a reservation situation.
Yeah, very difficult. But it is, I love this museum. It is one of my favorites. I try to tell people to all go and check it out. Rarely any of them do, because it's just, it's not something that people think about. But if you do go, it's an amazing, amazing experience. And, when can you get that close to stuff from Notre Dame?
Exactly.
Once it goes back on the roof, you'll never get to see it that close again.
Well, head over there, guys. Be inspired. Listen to Claudine. I know I'm going to head over there because I'm there every day anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And make sure you guys tune in next week for another episode of Paris History Avec a Hemingway. And don't forget to check out Claudine's live virtual tours every Sunday. More information on her website, ClaudineHemingway.com. And we look forward to chatting with you guys more. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.